Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate your time and your viewership. It means a lot. So I am here in the wonderful Perfumology in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Every time I'm in the Philly area, I always make sure to stop by here, see how the proprietor of the store and his mother are doing. And of course, I love smelling fragrances. I can spend hours here. I can live here, right? They have a couch in the back. I can sleep here. But I'm going to be talking about 10 fragrances that I think you should check out when visiting Perfumology. And I'm going to explain my rationale to you as I reveal these fragrances. So make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I get into this video and I tell you about 10 fragrances that I think you should check out when visiting Perfumology, and I also let you know why I think you should check these fragrances out, I do want to mention that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, if you like fragrance reviews here on YouTube, but also top 10 videos, giveaways, unboxings, special guests, and more, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. All you have to do is click on that red button in the corner. And of course, while you're at it, please be sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell icon. So usually and typically when I recommend fragrances, I want to recommend fragrances that are a little bit hard to come across, especially if you're visiting Perfumology in store. Unfortunately, a lot of shops have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and I've seen a lot of stores personally close their doors. And so if you are visiting Perfumology, there are a lot of fragrances that I would recommend you check out just because you're going to have a hard time sampling them anywhere else. Some of these fragrances don't even have samples available online. And so if you do have the pleasure and the privilege of being in store, I would definitely recommend that you check out these fragrances. And a lot of the fragrances that I'm recommending in here are also personal favorites of mine. Some of them are new discoveries, and a lot of them are also brand new fragrances. And so I do want you to experience some of the more recent releases on the market, if you will. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start things off with a fragrance by Gallagher Fragrances. And this one is called Wicked Good. So I love Gallagher Fragrances products because there's a cheat sheet right on the front label here. So it says chocolate, Madagascar vanilla, and tonka bean. And of course, this is a very powdery chocolate. It's very gourmand. And this is more of an indie company. And so it's a little bit harder to sample their fragrances in stores. And so Perfumology might actually be the only place where you can sample this in stores. And so if you are here, you have the opportunity to sample it, I would definitely recommend you check this one out. Daniel Gallagher is a really humble, really down-to-earth person who is very passionate about the fragrances that he creates. So this would be the first one that I recommend, Wicked Good by Gallagher Fragrances. The next one that I would like to recommend is by Le Jardin Retrouvé. This one is Citron Boboli. This is a spicy citrus fragrance. It opens up very bright, very refreshing. You kind of have like that lemony, sort of lemongrass, lemon verbena vibe in here. But you also have these spicy components that add this layer of refinement to the fragrance. Typically, I smell a lot of citrus fragrances that are very, unapologetically about the citrus. And it's kind of hard to detect any other nuances in here. So the inclusion of the spices in here, in my personal opinion, really sets this apart, makes it a unique fragrance. Citron Boboli, if you have the opportunity to check this out, I definitely would. There are a lot of very bright, fresh, and vegetal fragrances in this collection. And this is the one that I personally see myself wearing a lot of. I also want to recommend a fragrance by the company Parfums de Marly, and of course this one is Pegasus Exclusif, and this is one of the newer releases from the company. This is the newest one that's marketed for men. Of course, the newest one is actually Delina La Rosée, which is a woman's fragrance, but this one is that jasmine, almond, creamy, vanilla vibe, but then they also added a little bit of agarwood in the base and cardamom in the opening. It's at times spicy, it's woodsy, it's fresh, it has a touch of sweetness to it too. And then in the base, you also have that smoke that is found in exclusive fragrances. And so if you do find yourself in Perfumology, please check out Pegasus Exclusif by Parfums de Marly, one that I personally love, one that has been on my radar for a long time, months before it came out. I was really eager and really looking forward to sampling it. I also want to recommend the brand new Initio Parfum Privé fragrance. This one is called Musk Therapy. This has a bunch of different musks in here. There's also this undercurrent of vanilla, which is really enjoyable. And then you also have like this black currant / cassis thing going on in the opening, which in and of itself smells very musky, but it adds like this sweet sort of aromatic musk to the fragrance. Very hard to describe. So this is actually one of my wife's favorite fragrances of all time. She's wearing it now. She wears it almost every single morning, and this is one that I have inevitably come to associate with her just because of her affinity for the fragrance. And I can almost guarantee you my bottle is like 50% full or 50% empty. Let's be a little pessimistic, and I will find myself picking up another bottle of this one just because she loves using it so darn much. The next fragrance that I want to talk about is called Chocognac, and this one is by Ikiryo. So the perfumer Vincent Dreamhouse, I've actually had the pleasure of meeting him in person several years ago. Again, just another person who is very passionate about what he does. And there are so many fragrances that he's put out throughout the years that honestly, I've really fallen in love with. He has one called Orange Sunshine. He has one called Damn Hippie. And there are Lucidité. There are way too many for me to name. And this one is chocolate and cognac with like an animalic thing in here. I smelled it for the first time today and I was like, no way. I couldn't believe what I was smelling. So he did away with the wax dripping on the cap, which I think is a bit more functional. You can take the bottle off, or the cap off rather, but I actually really like the wax. And this is somebody who is so passionate about everything he creates. He creates the renderings that go into the books. He creates the graphics and the images. He hires the models. He is so involved. He really is a one-man show, and I am really proud of everything that he's been able to accomplish. And so, to my knowledge, I don't think Ikiryo fragrances are available in too many stores. So again, if you find yourself in Perfumology, definitely check this one out. The next one, another one that I smelled today for the first time. I actually have the original, which came out a few years ago. This is the Extrait version of B683 by Marc-Antoine Barrois. So this one is strong. This one is really strong. You get that spicy sort of leathery saffron thing in here with that bright effervescent apple in the opening, and just taking off the atomizer, it's almost like I sprayed it. I can really smell it. I mean, it really creates a strong cloud. Nair actually sprayed it for me maybe about a half hour ago. And as soon as he sprayed it on the blotter, it enveloped the room. And so this is one that I personally really enjoy. And so I have the original. I also have Ganymede, and I find myself wearing both of these fragrances from time to time, but I'm gonna need the Extrait into my life. The other fragrance that I wanna talk about is the revamped version of the Soft Lawn by Imaginary Authors. And so this is a brand that I know personally, I was only able to sample online just because there were no other stores in my area, whether New Jersey, New York, where I can actually sample them in person. But here in Perfumology, they do have it on hand. The notes for this are linden blossom, grapefruit, laurel and ivy leaves, oak moss, vetiver, and a fresh tennis ball accord, which I find to be quite quirky. And I do actually get some of the floral components, and I get something in here that kind of reminds me of iris. And I also have a sample of this at home, which was sent to me by the company. I never actually went ahead and got a bottle of this one to my recollection, but I really enjoy this one, and I think it's perfect for this time of the year. Another one that I want to talk about is one that I have mentioned on my channel like 3 or 4 times already. I am really enjoying this one. If you're a fan of citrus and you're a fan of mint, I would definitely recommend Vert Desir by Veronique Gabai. So this one is very bright, very refreshing. You have like this creamy lemon thing going on in the opening. You also have this green minty presence at the core of the fragrance. But this one kind of does it in a different way from other mint and citrus fragrances, in the sense that it doesn't remind me of a mojito. It kind of does its own thing. It has enough of that woodsy backbone. It has enough of that creaminess to sort of make it stand out among other fragrances that are kind of in that vein. And I'm thinking of like 1861 Renaissance by Xerjoff, or perhaps even Aquadecima by Eau d'Italie. There's another fragrance by Hermes that kind of gives me a similar vibe, but I really recommend this one. And then another fragrance that I would say you have to sample when visiting Perfumology, because you're not going to be able to sample this one anywhere else, is by Six Sense Parfums. And this is the sister company to Parfum Cortana, because the creative director is Joseph Cortana. This was actually his first fragrance project, and this is called Nappa Noir. So Obviously, this is inspired by Nappa leather, and so it kind of has this warm, leathery vibe. At times I smell violet, at times I smell coffee, at times I smell like this really chunky iris in here. This is a really unique take on leather. Again, very bold, very refined. I think it's perfectly unisex. I think the sweeter elements and those floral tonalities might make it lean a little bit feminine at one time, but then at other times the leather really starts to come through, and it's not aggressive, it's not dark, it's not smoky or anything like that, but it has enough of that spicy presence that you smell it and you're like, oh yeah, I'm smelling a leather. And so Nappa Noir by Six Sense Parfum, definitely recommend it. And then the number one fragrance, with all due respect to Perfumology, that I would like to recommend is by Perfumology, and this one is called Clutch. So you guys know I have reviewed many Perfumology fragrances. This is the only place where you're gonna be able to sample this, let's be honest. I've reviewed Grange, I've done Bliss, Leima, so I've covered a lot of Perfumology fragrances on my channel, and I'm very impressed with many of them. Clutch is this dark, deep, warm, resinous, sappy, balsamic, boozy kind of a fragrance. It's, I mean, so easy to pull off for it being such a dark fragrance. And I don't mean dark in terms of it being gothic or brooding. It's not like a T-Rex or a Black Afghano or something like that, but it's very warm and very enveloping, very cozy scent. And it just conveys a sense of class that even if you do like 2 or 3 sprays, if you're conservative with the sprayer, you can pull this one off when it's a little bit warmer outside, especially if you're wearing it later into the evening. I personally really enjoy Clutch by Perfumology. Please check it out if you do find yourself in Perfumology. Once again, all of the information is going to be down below. If you are in the Philadelphia area, as I find myself being in the Philadelphia area once every few months or so, I would say definitely try to stop by, make it a point to sample a lot of these fragrances, because I think there's a lot of quality and there's a lot of diversity and variety within the store. You have indie brands, niche brands, some very popular niche brands that have been in the industry for 15 years now. And so thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate your viewership. I hope you took something of value from this video. If you did and you're not subscribed to this channel, I would really appreciate it if you would consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Again, all you have to do is click on that red button in the corner. And while you're at it, please be sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell. Thanks again for watching. Love you all, and we'll see you next time. Bye.